Hello and welcome back to the Frogs of War podcast. I'm Anthony North and finally, once again, reunited with Russ Hodges. Russ, how are you doing tonight? It's good to be back with you here on the podcast. It's been a few weeks. How's it been?
Yeah, we've been playing some podcast tag these last few weeks. I feel like you've been kind of avoiding me, man. What's going on there?
Hey, I get sick, you get sick, I'm out of town. That's how it goes. But happy to be back with you here.
Yeah, man. It's been a interesting last few weeks, and my sinuses last week were shutting me down real bad. Anybody who's got seasonal allergies out there, you know what I'm talking about. I think the worst thing about having those bad sinuses and those seasonal allergies is you're going to be sick for the next 4 or 5 days. Doesn't matter how much nasal spray you use, doesn't matter how many pills you take. There ain't SHIT you can do about it. But feeling better, feeling great. Work's kind of slowing down here, so going to have a lot more free time on my hands, which is nice. Can start diving into a lot more TCU stuff, and it's been fun. Baseball starting up, and tennis is kicking ass, taking names, and we got a lot of really exciting stuff to talk about. So looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, man, for sure. Appreciate you doing those solo pods while I was out, and the one last week was really great. So if anyone listening here hasn't heard that one, go back and give it a listen. It's a great one. But yeah, lots to talk about. And yeah, glad things are slowing up for you. It's not slowing up for me, but I'm still trying to keep up with all of it. But yeah, basketball season, baseball season overlapping here. It's one of the most exciting parts of the calendar for TCU sports. So we'll just jump right into the basketball. The two big games this week. It was a big-time roller coaster of emotions for TCU basketball. We'll start with the big high of Saturday with Mike Miles' triumphant return in Shawmire against Oklahoma State. The Horned Frogs take down the Cowboys 100-75. Miles looked really good in his return. There was kind of some talk about him coming back the game prior, and he shot that down, saying he would come back when he was ready, and he certainly looked ready against Oklahoma State. 15 points, and played 35 minutes, so looked really good doing it, and it was great to see him back on the court.
Yeah, Mike himself joked after the game that he wasn't expecting to play 35 minutes, but I think him going out there and being efficient from the field, looking like himself. He took some nice shots, and I know there was a little bit of a minor scare in the second half. I think he took a jumper and came up a little lame on one of his heels and was out for like a couple minutes, came right back into the game, and he looked good. He looked like Mike Miles, and you could tell that his presence it's just something that lifts every other player up in that locker room. He's a big cog of that machine that is the TCU offense. And when that cog was missing, it was a dysfunctional machine. I mean, particularly in the half court, as we've seen over these last few weeks. But to have Mike Miles back, his ability to make tough shots, break defenders down in one-on-one scenarios, and, be kind of a get out of jail free card when the half court offense isn't there is going to be huge for TCU down the run here as the regular season comes to a close. So it was really nice to see him back out there. Fans were anxious, trying not to panic. I know we talked on the pod, or you and Drew did a couple weeks ago, about panic or patience with TCU basketball, and it was I think a matter of patience for him coming back and just trying to tread water and not fall too far down the conference standings. And hopefully now that he's back, TCU can try to make a run here to do something in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge win. The Frogs were 1-4 in the 5 games that Miles missed. So it was a tough streak there of losing games, and needed to get back on the right side of things to level things off. Obviously, every game in the Big 12 is going to be a tough one, is going to be a quality opponent that can take you down any night. So to be able to get that win and kind of get that monkey off of everyone's back to say, okay, we're still in good position here. We're not too worried about a complete collapse down the stretch. So that was good. And really, like you said about lifting, lifting all the boats here, this was the best shooting performance TCU had of the season by far. A significantly improved effort from the Frogs, 68% from the field, 53% on three-pointers. Just a really impressive work from everyone up and down the lineup. 6 Frogs in double digits, double from Damian Ball. So really impressive effort on the offensive end against a Oklahoma State team that had been one of the top teams in the country at defensive efficiency. It really put on display, and you were starting to hear of, when TCU is healthy, they can beat anybody in the country. When TCU is healthy, this is a potential Final Four team, a potential Sweet 16 team. So that was going into the preseason. That was a lot of the talk about how all of this experience on the team, and really TCU hadn't been able to put that on display yet. So it was great to see that on Saturday.
In the first half, you look at Caleb Boone getting into foul trouble. That was something that really hindered Oklahoma State in this game, not having arguably their best player on the floor for practically the entire first half. He spent a lot of time on the bench, and the Cowboys just weren't able to get anything going offensively. And for TCU, I thought the Frogs played with great pace throughout the entire game, and you had high percentage shots coming from a lot of different players. Emmanuel Miller had one of his better games of the season with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Damian Ball with the 16 and 11 double-double. He's had multiple point and assist double-doubles in Big 12 play over the last few weeks. So I think the best offensive performance of the year for TCU for sure. I know they had 103 points in a game against Central Arkansas earlier this year, but that's Central Arkansas. This is Oklahoma State, and this is a team that TCU had lost to. Remember, a few weeks ago, TCU went on the road and in what was a winnable game and weren't able to come away with it. So this was a really important game, I think, for that reason, to not give up a sweep in conference play and try to fight for improving that conference seed, going into the tournament in a couple weeks. So really pleased with the offense. I thought the Frogs played with great pace. They were able to get out and score on the fast break a little bit, get out in transition. And, there were a couple minor flaws. The turnovers were a little troublesome. They had 16 turnovers in this game. And the free throw shooting, which that horse is dead, and we continue to kick it on this Frogs of War podcast. The free throw shooting is, something that TCU is going to have to fix quickly going into the Big 12 tournament and going into the NCAA tournament, because we've talked in the past about when this team is healthy and playing well, what is the ceiling? Some people have said it could be a Final Four run. It could be kind of cruising into the Sweet 16, but not when they're shooting free throws like this, including the Kansas game, which we'll talk about in a little bit. TCU in its last 5 games has shot in the 60s or worse from the free throw line. And I think if you were to average all 5 of those games out, it's probably going to come somewhere in the 50s, the mid to low 50s. So you get a test back in school and it's a 55. That's an F. So TCU is barely failing or just failing from the free throw line over these last few weeks. So that's got to get better. But looking at this game as a whole, I think you have to be very happy with it. And the most important thing, of course, is Mike Miles coming back, not having any setbacks, and playing efficiently and just playing within the flow of the game.
I was on mute for a bit there, wasn't I? All right.
I was typing that in the layout. I was like, I hope he's going to see it. I'm not trying to interrupt my man when he's mid-spiel, but we're back. We're back.
I had a whole rant. It was genius. All right. But mostly, yeah, you said it all there. I think that the most concerning thing about this team going forward is its free throw shooting and probably the 3-point shooting as well. This game really showed off all the best of TCU, and it really swung the other direction on Monday night. A big Monday. It was a lot of electricity in the building. The whiteout, all the NBA scouts in the arena. Max Duggan came over from the Davey O'Brien Award, dressed to the nines in his tuxedo. The men's tennis team was there after they had just won the national championship earlier that afternoon, and they were honored on the court. And it was a thrilling night in Schallmeyer that was kind of a bad basketball game that didn't really live up to the moment. And certainly TCU was unable to come away with the win, and the defending national champions will not be swept by the Horned Frogs this year. And it was a big opportunity missed for the Frogs to get another signature pelt up on the wall on that resume. I mean, Kansas is now up to number 3 in the AP poll. Obviously one of the best teams. They in the top 16 that came out from the NCAA selection committee. They were a number 1 seed. So it's the kind of win on your home court that TCU was actually favored in the betting markets going into this game. It's one that TCU very easily could have come away with, but ended up with perhaps it was one of the worst shooting nights of the season, coming off the best shooting night of the season, and you followed up with the worst. And it's really unfortunate because on the other end of the court held Jalen Wilson to just 7 points for Kansas. Kansas shot just 39% as a team and didn't make a basket for the final nearly 5 minutes of game time. And it's just to have a defensive performance like that against a team that strong, you can't keep giving them time to survive. You can't give them chances to get back up. And TCU kept doing that by missing free throws and missing opportunities. Another 8 free throws missed in a game that you have the ball down 3 and are unable to get a shot off. So where do you want to go with this one, Russ? Because I think there's quite a bit to talk about, and it's just a tough one to come away with. When
I wrote my game recap for this matchup, my subheader was an opportunity wasted, because if you would have told me before the game that Kansas would shoot 39% from the field, 18% from 3-point range, TCU had 12 offensive rebounds in this game compared to only 9 for Kansas, and the Frogs only had 7 turnovers. So if you were to tell me all those things on top of Jalen Wilson only going 3 for 11 after he had 30 in the last game, Grady Dick only had 5 points in the second half, TCU playing at home, I would think TCU probably wins that game, 7 or 8 times out of 10. And unfortunately, this was just one of those scenarios where, you got to find a way to get that win. It felt like Kansas was just, they were floating the bait out there, and TCU just didn't want to take the bait. And it's a frustrating loss, I think, for TCU coming off of a dominant performance against the Cowboys, where you feel like if TCU can find a way to get this win, and to say that TCU swept Kansas, a top 5 team in the country, you talk about a resume builder going into the NCAA tournament and a chance to, again, move up in the Big 12 conference standings. It was just kind of a deflating loss, I think. And you look at some of the individual shooting numbers for TCU, shooting 30% from the field. That's hard to do.
Terrible.
I think you shoot 40% from the field. That's, you know, whatever. You could shoot the ball better. You could also shoot it worse. But 30% overall on, I believe, close to 70 shots in the game, that just ain't going to cut it. And the free throws, missing 8 free throws in a game that you lose by 5 points, this is becoming a problem for TCU because you go back to the Baylor game, losing 72-68. You miss 6 free throws in that game. You make 3 or 4 of those, it could be a completely different ball game. Kansas, you lose by 5 points and you miss 8 free throws. You make 4 or 5 of them, it could be a completely different ball game. Iowa State, as bad as TCU played on the offensive end against Iowa State the second time around, 70-59, you lose by 11 points in a game where you missed 12 free throws and went 33% from the line, 6 for 18. You have to be able to close games out at the free throw line in college. It's much like high school, where you get to the last couple of minutes and it's a tight game. Teams are going to put you to the line, and you got to be able to make free throws. And I'm looking at some of the individual numbers for TCU. Real quick, just a shout out to Jacoby Coles. I know that Steven Johnson of the Star-Telegram did a nice little profile piece on him and his increased role this year. And he's just been so steady for TCU off the bench. And he's basically double figures off the bench every game now for TCU. And he's a big reason why TCU's bench has frequently outscored the opposing team's bench. But I bring up Jacoby Coles because he's the only player on TCU right now with a free throw percentage greater than 80%. And he's a 6'7" wing player. He's not a guard. He's a wing player coming off the bench, and he's your best free throw shooter. That's pretty rare in some instances where if you're a team trying to close a game out at a free throw line, I feel like the common sense would dictate you're going to try to get the ball to one of your lead guards, and they're going to close it out.
Yeah, foul that big man.
You want the big guys getting to the line because usually they can't knock those shots down as frequently, but he's shooting 81%. And you look at Miles, I think is at 71 or 72. Miller is in the high 60s. Baugh, I think, is low 70s, possibly high 60s. Wells is in the 60s. It's just that's not good enough. It's not good enough, and it's not going to be good enough when the postseason comes around. And so I don't know if this is a confidence issue. I don't know if it's a coaching issue, but TCU's got to start making free throws because you look at the numbers again in this game. TCU had 21 free throw attempts, and Kansas only had 12. And I think 3 or 4 of those
12.
free throws were at the very end of the game. So the Frogs are doing things right. They're being aggressive. They're getting to the basket. They're drawing fouls and drawing contact. They're just not finishing the free throws. So I think that adds to the frustration too, is that there were so many missed opportunities for TCU in this game. And I think the inability to make those free throws kind of encapsulates that in some ways, because you're doing A, B, and C right, but you're failing miserably at D. And because you aren't doing that right, the whole alphabet falls apart. So frustrating.
Yeah, it creates these empty possessions where, yes, maybe you're getting, Wilson and Grady Dick each had 2 fouls in the first half, relatively early into the first half, and that was good, but TCU was never really able to take advantage of that via the free throws or in any other way. But the empty possessions of so frequently there's the missed front end of a 1-and-1. The Baylor game, man, the missed free throws were just so devastating in that one. But in this game, I think Eddie Lampkin missed a front end of a 1-and-1. I think Xavier Cork had an 0 for 2. We've had some with several times it's an 0 for 2 visit to the free throw line, and it's just as good as a turnover. It's just as good as an air ball. I think it's when it's supposed to be the free throw. It's supposed to be given that you're giving those points away to the opponent. So it's really tough there. I think the other thing is, despite all of that, despite how terrible TCU played offensively, TCU had a chance in the end. TCU trailing by 3 in the final seconds. Jalen Wilson misses the front end of a 1-and-1. TCU gets the rebound, has the ball with 20 seconds left, and has a timeout in hand. Jamie Dixon chooses not to use that timeout, which I think at first is probably okay, is understandable. Let's see if we can go down and get a quick bucket. Let's see if we can get an open look quick. But it was, I don't know, it was clear at about second 12 or so that the Kansas defense had the Frogs locked up on that final play. I mean, just a full shutdown of whatever it was that TCU was going to try to do. So I'm not, I guess I am second guessing Dixon a little bit here. I mean, I kind of wish he had called a timeout, set something up to get a shooter a shot. Because what the shot that ended up coming was Damian Ball kind of just dribbling with defenders on him. He gets a shot up, and it's not close to being a successful 3-pointer there to tie the game, and it ends up Kansas gets the rebound, and the Frogs have to foul to turn it to a 5-point final margin. But I don't know. What's your thought there? Am I being too harsh, or should something better should have come out of that final play, right? You have a huge opportunity.
You're the losing team and your coach goes into the locker room with a timeout in his pocket, and it's that tight of a margin, I think that's a bad look. Particularly in a game where Damian Ball finished 4 of 16. He did not have his best game offensively. And Emmanuel Miller was 2 for 9. Miles was 4 for 14. Wells was 0 for 4. Nobody in particular outside.
Everyone was terrible. Everyone was bad.
Jacoby Coles, who was 5 for 8. Maybe you try to run a play to get him a shot. Maybe he can knock something down from 3. Chuck O'Bannon, who's coming off the bench now with Peavy in the starting lineup. I know he had 12 points in the game against Oklahoma State. He hit a big jump shot in a game against Baylor earlier this year. He hit some big shots against Mississippi State, even though TCU lost that game. Maybe you draw a play up for him. I don't know. Draw something up for Mike Miles to hit a 3. But Damian Baugh trying to go to the basket with a full head of steam and getting a Wilson sandwich on 2 separate occasions was not an ideal way to finish the game. And yeah, people were talking about that immediately after the game online. Is you have a timeout, why not use it? Maybe Dixon just felt like it was such a bad night offensively that drawing a play up may not do much good. I don't really know, but yeah, I think in general in that situation, if you're the coach of a team in TCU's situation, I think you got to use that timeout and try and draw something up, especially like you said, when TCU brings the ball up the floor and the initial look is just not there for anybody. So you have the ball in the half court setting. Just burn the timeout. Maybe call something up where you can get a couple guys curling and get maybe a shot at the corner or a quick 2 and try to foul on the inbounds pass, or just reset the situation. Reset the situation and see if you can make something happen. So, hopefully that's something that we don't see again down the stretch here, is taking timeouts into the locker room.
Yeah, another kind of concerning trend that I'm seeing here is the final 5-minute offense for TCU. And maybe I need to go back. I don't have like the stats in front of me from each of these games, but it feels like in the final 5 minutes, TCU just kind of shuts down. That Kansas State game where Kansas State ends up winning by like 21 points, it's like a 6-point game with about 5 minutes to go. the Iowa State game, the Baylor game, all of these are right there for the taking. And then I don't know if it's the offense goes into a turtle shell, or if everybody kind of gets a little bit tight, a little bit sweaty palmed, or maybe it's the free throw shooting situation where you're not able to stop the runs or kind of break out of that scoring slump, because you're missing free throws. But I mean, I guess both teams in this one were terrible down the final 4 minutes. But I feel like I keep seeing that as a trend for the Horned Frogs these past several games of struggles where it seems like, all right, we've got a game. This is going to be exciting down to the final minutes. And then, I don't know, they just drop off. Am I seeing that right?
They've blown some second half leads this year. And I feel like TCU is a team on the offensive end, at least, that is really only comfortable playing at one speed, and that's playing fast. When TCU is able to inbound the ball quickly and push the ball quickly up the floor, score in transition, score on the fast break. We've heard it several times this year. TCU is one of the best fast break teams in the country, and they are. But we're also at game 28 or 29 in the season where there's so much film out there and so much of a resume put together where teams understand now that if you slow the game down and run long offensive sets, if you run a good zone defense, you're probably going to have success. If you slow the game down, TCU has to operate more out of the half court. And I feel like TCU just doesn't have very much of a identity offensively. If you want to say that the fast break offense is their identity, I guess you can. But I think when you compare TCU's half-court offense to other teams that they've played this year, like a Mississippi State, where they establish their low post. They play out of their post players who are really good passers because they're not a good jump shooting team. You have a team like Baylor that lives and dies with the three-point shot. They're going to continue to shoot the ball from distance because they have really good shooting guards. Some teams are really good at run and pick and roll. Some teams shoot three-pointers really well, play out of the low post. TCU, I feel like, just doesn't have something that it does particularly well in the half court. They don't really look to establish the post too often. They're not a good three-point shooting team. They don't make free throws very well. You don't have a guy really outside of Mike Miles that can consistently break a defender down in a one-on-one situation and bail you out or hit a semi-contested or a contested shot. So that makes it really tough to score when teams know that's your weakness, is forcing you to play out of the half court. So the biggest challenge is, how do you create more offense in the half court? How do you scheme up an offense to maybe you get more cutting action to the basket? Maybe you go run more 4 out or even 5 out to try and get more cutting action, more misdirection. I'm not qualified to really answer that question. That's on Jamie Dixon and his coaching staff, but it's clear that some adjustments need to be made in the second half late in games because, like you said, the Frogs are forced to slow down in those situations, and that's when the offense is at its worst. And you can't really play at high speed for all 40 minutes because you risk turnovers or other late game mistakes being made. You got to be able to close out a game by making free throws and running solid half-court offense. And right now, TCU can't do either of those things really well.
Do you think that teams are defending, particularly Eddie Lampkin down low, in a way that's preventing TCU from running their offense in a way that includes Lampkin in a high usage rate, or is TCU intentionally not using Lampkin in that way? Because I do think that earlier in the season, maybe in a lot of the non-conference portion of the season, offense ran through Lampkin to where he was flashing. He was catching high post passes and dishing assists to cutters or to the corner. And we haven't really seen that in quite a while.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the first game of the year against KSU, Eddie Lampkin was a monster down on the block. He was looking like Tolu Smith for Mississippi State against TCU a few weeks ago. So I don't think TCU does play through him, and I'm not sure if it's because he's guarded particularly well. You look at his shot attempts on a game in and game out basis, and he's typically not taking more than 5 or 6 shots. I think he only had 3 shot attempts against Kansas. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong there, but it seems like TCU's role for him on the offensive end is basically to try and be a garbage man. You know, go after the offensive boards, try to get some putbacks if you can. But it doesn't really look like they try to feature him. They try to play through Damian Baugh and Mike Miles. If they can get some cutting action for someone like Micah Peavy, or a 3-pointer for Jacoby Coles or Chuck O'Bannon, that's, you know, a secondary part of their offense. But I don't think they really look to feature Lampkin. And maybe that's something that should change. Perhaps it's the injury, the bad ankle. Maybe that's still bothering him. I know he's only had a couple games back in the starting lineup since Mike Miles returned. So perhaps it's the ankle. Perhaps it's inability to score consistently out of the low post. Maybe there isn't enough confidence in him. I don't know. But it would definitely help, I think, for TCU in the half court to have a low post presence to go to, whether it's Lampkin or Emmanuel Miller, to be honest. I've seen Emmanuel Miller post up in games before and look really good doing it. He's 6'8", and that man is strong. He's built like a power forward. So if you don't have any low post presence, it's really all on your guards to break a defender down, to hit a semi-contested shot, to get to the basket. And that takes a lot of effort. It drains you to have to be able to do that over and over again. So perhaps that's an adjustment that needs to be made. Find some different ways to post up your big guys and get them a little more involved so that you can play off of them more late in games.
Yeah, so just went back and looked at it. So Lampkin has not had more than 4 shot attempts since that game against Kansas State.
That's not good enough.
That you mentioned where he went off. Enough. He was 6 for 7 in that game. And I mean, certainly he's been injured. And so that's some of the period there. But prior to that, he had at least 4 shot attempts in every game but 2. And that's 2 of the first 3 games of the season. So, I mean, there through the meat of the non-conference, early in the conference schedule, he was getting, 6, 7, 8, 9 shot attempts, which, of course, if that's Eddie Lampkin shot attempts, they're probably high percentage dunks or layups or, shots where they have a good chance of going in. So, yeah, I think we've solved it right there. Just get the ball to Big Eddie and let him make everybody else feel too small. I think that's what TCU basketball needs to do going forward, and hopefully can do that starting Saturday in Lubbock against Texas Tech, a very difficult environment. Texas Tech is on a heater right now. They're really looking up in the Big 12 standings. Possibility to make the tournament. They were left for dead. I mean, a couple weeks ago, they were like 1-10 in the Big 12 conference, and they've won some games here. So they are a dangerous team. They were certainly dangerous in the game against against the Horned Frogs in Fort Worth way back. Was that before the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, I think that was the first conference game of the year, if I remember correctly.
Was that? See, we've lived a whole lifetime since then. But they gave TCU an extremely difficult game. TCU had to come back and win in Schollmeyer, and so I expect TCU to head to Lubbock and have a tough time there. But it's a game again. TCU really needs to win these games. You really don't want to fall further back in the conference standings. I still am pretty confident that TCU is not near like a bubble fence or anything like that, but you don't want to tempt fate like that. So going on the road and winning a game like that, where Tech has taken down some big names in that building, so a tough challenge. I think De'Vion Harmon has been playing kind of out of his mind over the last few weeks for the Red Raiders. And they've got a good set of players who can come out and match up pretty strong with the Horned Frogs. So I think it should be a good, interesting matchup on Saturday. That I don't know, the Frogs may be an underdog in that game. I think it'll be it's a tough one. How do you see it? What do you think? Any thoughts on the Tech game coming up?
Revenge after losing that first one, and like you said, they're putting together a nice little rally here. And I think they might have been 9-9 or 10-10 at one point in the season, flirting with 500. And the SB Nation Tech account was not doing so hot on Twitter. A lot of panic set in at that time, but Tech's playing good ball right now. And it'll be a really tough game. And like you said, I think TCU over these last 3 regular season games needs to find a way to finish this regular season strong. TCU basketball right now is kind of like the life is like a box of chocolates because you never know what you're going to get. You have an Oklahoma State 100-point offensive explosion where the Frogs are getting a lot of high percentage shots and just looking like a world beater. And then you follow that up against Kansas with a high school basketball offensive caliber performance. So it's going to be difficult. 2 road games over these last 3, and that one home game is ranked Texas. So opportunities are there, though. If you look at it from a positive perspective, there are opportunities for TCU over these last 3 games and going into the Big 12 tournament to add some more feathers to that cap. But as you said, there are also opportunities to weaken the resume and to lose out. So really looking to see TCU bounce back in this one. And I think this game will give us a better gauge with Miles back now for his 3rd game in a row post-injury. Seeing how TCU comes out on Saturday, I think will give us a much better idea of just the kind of team that we're going to be getting for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's Goldie Frogs in the 3 games here. We've got shooting was too hot against Oklahoma State. Shooting was too cold against Kansas. Maybe it'll be just right for Texas Tech. And so I guess with these last 3 games, these are all quad 1 level games. What is your projection? Do you think TCU, not giving a win to each one or anything, but what is the most likely outcome here? Is 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3?
I'm going to go ahead. How does
this shake out for TCU basketball?
I feel like this season, when I have laid out sort of my optimist versus realist versus pessimist predictions, it's typically gone toward the lower end of that spectrum. So I think TCU is more than capable of beating Oklahoma again. I think TCU can beat Texas Tech. Texas obviously will be tough. In an ideal scenario, TCU beats Texas and scores wins over Tech and Oklahoma. That's the optimist. I'm sticking with 2-1. I haven't seen the consistency from TCU on the offensive end with the turnovers and the missed free throws and the struggles in the half court to have a lot of confidence right now to say that they can get all three of those. So I would say 2-1. The pessimist in me says either 1-2 or 0-3. But I would be, with Mike Miles back, I would be frankly very, very surprised and very disappointed if that were the case. So I like 2-1. I think TCU gets to the 20-win mark before the regular season ends, and they pick up a couple more poker chips there in the Big 12 tournament to add to the stack going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think that would make for a fantastic season. In whatever 2 wins it would be, even if it's dropping the Texas game at home. TCU certainly capable of winning all 3 of those. I think any 2 wins probably keeps TCU in a 6 spot or better. Any 3 losses down this stretch, including the Big 12 tournament, and you're looking at potentially flirting with the 8-9 line, which is where certainly TCU was last season, but that's not where you want to be. It's not you don't have a very good path to a Sweet 16 at that point. So certainly I think TCU has to look for 3 more wins total, including the Big 12 tournament, to feel in a better spot for a 6 or better. I've been writing in the bracketology about how earning a top 4 seed is extremely critical to making it further in the tournament. Really, from 5 through 9, basically have the same percentage of advancing through, but those top 4 seeds are much, much more likely to advance through. So I don't know that TCU can make its way up to that top 4 at this point. I think it would take probably 3 wins here and maybe 2 wins in the conference tournament to make that happen. So we'll see. I think it's an exciting finish to February, and as we flip the calendar to March next week, it's going to start. The madness will begin, and it's my favorite time of the year. I love the March Madness, as you all know if you've been following my stuff at Frogs War. So I think that's all I have for basketball. Anything else on basketball? We talked. We've gone quite a ways on basketball
all I'll say
here.
Is,
I know we've got a lot more to talk about.
My money away once again this year as I pour my hours and my research into filling out my bracket that ultimately gets roasted within the first 3 or 4 hours of Thursday afternoon games. So that'll be a exciting time.
It's the best. Tradition unlike any other. Yes. All right. So baseball season has begun. Frog ball is underway and got off to an extremely strong start in the college baseball showdown. I didn't get to watch a whole bunch of this or follow it a lot as I was traveling over the weekend. So, Russ, can you kind of tell us how did this go? And obviously
so
some
an early
huge
test,
wins
and I did
over
a
the
preview
weekend.
Series on this set of games earlier in the week, but TCU getting 3 SEC opponents, 2 of which are ranked in the top 25. So TCU came in at number 15 in the D1 baseball poll. Vanderbilt was the first opponent on Friday. The Commodores are ranked number 10. Arkansas was the big matchup on Saturday, number 8 in the country. Really, really strong program over the last few years. And then Sunday closing it out against Missouri. A big challenge for sure, but kind of a home series for TCU in a way, playing in Arlington, Texas at Globe Life Field. And I know there are a lot of Frog fans there. One of my good buddies was there. And TCU came out on Friday and played really well from the start, beating Vanderbilt 11-4. Ryan Vanderhey, the transfer from Kansas, he started the game and pitched really well through 5 innings, I believe he only gave up 2 or 3 hits and a couple earned runs. Had a really good start. Luke Savage pitched well in relief as well, and a couple of huge at bats midway through the game. Vanderbilt actually led 3-2. Frogs were threatening. They loaded the bases for Elijah Nunez, and he belted a 3-run double into the outfield. And then Braden Taylor followed up with a bomb of a 2-run homer, and just like that, it was 7-3. And TCU just controlled the game from that point forward. So really pleased to see that from Nunez and Braden Taylor, who are both going to have huge roles with this offense, along with Austin Davis, the transfer from West Virginia. And having those 3 guys at the top of the lineup, with Davis leading off, Nunez second, and Taylor third, I firmly believe that's one of the best 1-2-3 arrangements in a lineup in the entire country. Braden Taylor, preseason All-American. Austin Davis and Elijah Nunez are both speed demons. They're going to steal a lot of bases this year. So really encouraged with the overall performance from TCU against Vanderbilt, and then putting on a show Saturday against Arkansas, winning 18-6. Austin Davis hit his first home run as a Frog in this game, went 3 for 6 with 3 RBIs. Anthony Silva, the freshman, preseason Big 12 freshman of the year, he had 3 RBIs in this game. 5 different players, excluding those 2 guys, 5 different players had 2 RBIs. So everybody was getting in on the fun offensively. Cam Brown started this game for TCU and didn't really pitch very well. I think he only lasted an inning or so, but shout out to Cole Klecker, the freshman, one of several freshmen who have pitched already for the Frogs this year. He threw just over 4 innings of relief, and I believe only gave up 1 run, pitched really well when the Frogs needed him to against an elite baseball team in Arkansas. And then Ben Abeld, the left-handed freshman, came in through 2 innings of shutout relief. So the freshman stepped up, and that's going to be, I think, a theme for TCU baseball this year. Is the pitching is young, but really talented. And these guys are going to have to pitch a lot this year because the Frogs have lost quite a few veteran guys over the last year or so. I can name several different guys, but the freshmen are going to have to pitch a lot, and they're going to have to pitch well. And they did that against Arkansas, 18-6. And then closing out the series on Sunday, losing 9-8 against Missouri in 10 innings. This was a game that unfortunately got away from the Frogs. TCU was leading 6-2 about halfway through the game, and then Missouri just sort of slowly scratched and clawed its way back into the game. And Garrett Wright came out toward the end and tried to close it out. He didn't look very good, unfortunately. I think he had 3 walks, a couple of wild pitches, gave up back-to-back RBI singles in 2 strike counts in the 9th inning, and the Tigers took the lead 8-6. TCU's defense actually finished the game with 5 errors. It was changed to 4 after that, but not a good defensive game by TCU. A shout out to David Bishop, though, because he had a huge hit in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs and 2 strikes, hit a 2 RBI single through the left side of the infield. Tied the game 8-8. Game goes in the top of the 10th. Missouri gets a runner on base and tries to steal third. Carson Bowen, the freshman catcher who got the start for Curtis Byrne, throwing error. Runner comes home. Missouri leads 9-8, and then it was curtains for TCU after that. But offensively, to score, was it 11 plus 18 plus 8 is, I think that's 38 runs. It might be 37. I hope my math is correct there. But regardless, a really, really solid performance from the offense. 1 through 9, you had some big hits from several different guys. So that kind of set the stage for the midweek game yesterday against UT Arlington. TCU winning that one 7-3. The Lupton opener, Margarita Day in the U.S., National Margarita Day. Lupton fans were celebrating there, and more freshmen pitching really well in this game. Braden Sloan, left-hander, started the game through just over 3 innings. Luis Rodriguez, who's a freshman with a lot of promise, struck out 4 guys in 2 2/3. Cole Fontenelle hit his first home run as a Frog, and he's a guy who I think has a chance to be that breakout performer for TCU this year. He's kind of an unknown in the sense that he started his career at Washington a couple of years ago, didn't play a whole lot, transferred to a JUCO, raked at JUCO this past year, and then transferred to TCU. And right now he's kind of the fourth outfielder / designated hitter. I think he's earned that over Logan Maxwell, who I think was probably the other candidate for that role this year. But he had some big hits over the weekend, hitting a home run yesterday. TCU wins 7-3. That'll be another key this year, is not dropping some of those midweeks to the UT Arlingtons and the Dallas Baptists and some of those schools, because I think these are going to be opportunities where, these are going to be opportunities.
Abilene Christians,
again, where the freshmen are going to be asked to pitch, and they're going to have to pitch well. And again, 4 games in, we got a long way to go, but the early returns are pretty solid. So excited to see what happens this weekend against Florida State. Florida State's 4-0 to start the year, albeit they got 3 wins against James Madison and 1 against Jacksonville. So have not played a quality opponent yet, but TCU played at Florida State last year, lost twice, and had the 3rd game canceled. So Frogs got to come out and be ready to play this weekend, and excited to see what they do. Also, a shout out real quick to Sam Stautenborough, the transfer from California, who started on Sunday against Missouri. He struck out 7 guys in 4 innings and looked really good. Probably could have gone a little bit further in that game too, if I'm honest, but maybe a learning experience for the young coach, Kirk Saarloos, in his 2nd year. But yeah, really, really happy all around. I know I've been talking a little bit, but really happy with the way TCU baseball started the year so far.
Yeah, certainly being able to come out of that. If you had told us that you come away from that opening 3 games 2-1, I think most Frog fans would be pretty satisfied with that. I think the way that it shook out, where you get those 2 massive wins to open the weekend, you kind of feel like, well, we should have been 3-0. It should have been, and because Missouri is not considered to the level of Vanderbilt and Arkansas, but baseball's a long season. You're not going to win every game, and I think getting those big wins, it just shows what this TCU team is capable of, and the offensive explosion. I mean, this team is going to put up some fireworks. I think it's exciting to see. I'm hoping to get out to a game. I hope the weather cooperates and isn't too frigid out here in Fort Worth.
40 degrees,
frigid for Fort Worth, where
breeze.
It's like 50 degrees. I'm sure for you, that's like, yeah. We might have to wear a sweatshirt. It's gonna be tough. I'm hoping to get out there to see the team this weekend, and I think it's gonna be a great atmosphere all season out there at Lupton. Just this team is really exciting, and it's exciting to see the young arms throwing well. But I'm most excited, I think, for that Anthony Silva, Trey Richardson, and Davis, those new guys coming in and providing that boost and filling those roles that were vacated, and seeing them step in right away to fill in and not only not miss a beat, but I think really maybe even take a step forward from where this TCU offense was last season, and where it leaves opposing pitchers no place to hide. Like you said, 1 through 9 down that lineup, you're not getting you don't get a pitch off. So I think a very exciting TCU baseball season ahead. And, like I said, I didn't get to watch too much of it this past week or listen to it on the radio, but I'm excited to get into it this next week and going forward. All right. I don't know why we saved this for last. This should have been the first thing. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about tennis. The TCU men's tennis team is national championship again, back-to-back ITA indoor men's team national champions, sweeping through the tournament. Again, this season, the tournament finale was up there by you in Chicago, hosted by the University of Illinois. And you had to win 4 games in the tournament. They only dropped 2 total points throughout the entire run-up of this tournament, and that includes the regional ITA kickoff weekend that was here in Fort Worth a couple weeks ago, which is pretty incredible. Sweeping past top 10, all of these are top 15 ranked squads, but top 10, Baylor 4-0. Georgia, I think, was 13 at the time of the match, 5-0. Number 2, Kentucky, was the only one that ended up giving the Horned Frogs a real fight at a 4-2 contest. And then the Texas Longhorns reached the title match against TCU and also got swept away 4-0. Pure domination from the Horned Frogs in Chicago, and back-to-back years lifting that trophy for the TCU men's tennis team.
Who haven't watched much tennis this year, much TCU tennis over the last couple of years. The way that TCU has started off this season, 12-0, not just indoor national champions for the second straight year, but prior to the tournament, TCU beat 3 ranked opponents in a row. They beat Baylor, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and I believe Tennessee and North Carolina were both road wins. So to all 3 of them are road wins against those are all top 20.
All 3 of those
programs. And to follow that up with 4 consecutive wins over top 15 programs, and to repeat as national champions with some veteran guys like Jake Fearnley and Luke Famba and Sander Jong, but you have some really, really, really good young players like Sebastian Gorsny and Jack Pennington, who are studs. These are going to be really, really good players,
elite,
over these next couple of years for TCU. So the Frogs getting some respect now, being number 1 ranked in the country post indoor national championship. In the newest polls, TCU is now number 1 in the country going into this next batch of matchups, which I believe will start the outdoor season. 5 singles players are ranked in the top 125. Jake Fearnley is 13th, and he beat a player from Georgia, Ethan Quinn, who is ranked number 4 in the country. And he had some huge wins over the weekend, Jake Fearnley did. So shout out to him.
Oh, and he almost beat number 1 Spazzeri from Texas, but they didn't end up finishing their match because Texas had already lost. But he was up a set and almost closed out the second
Jong,
set,
who wasn't even
before having to move on
going
to the
into the
set.
tournament, is now ranked number 41 in the country. He beat some ranked players over the weekend. Jack Pennington is not ranked. He's going to be ranked very soon. Tournament. He beat ranked players. Gorsny beat ranked players. Famba is now number 32 nationally. Jong is 41. Gorsny is 82, and Pedro Vivas is 119. So 5 singles players in the top 125, and you have 2 doubles teams now that I believe are in the top 20. Sander Jong and Pedro Vivas, I think, are number 5, and then Fearnley and Famba are ranked in the top 25 as well, and they rank the top 60 for doubles. So this team is stacked right now. They are 12-0 and have, like you said, only had Kentucky, who was the number 2 team in the country, and one other opponent. I think it was either Tennessee or Carolina, where it was a 4-3 match. Those are the only 2 teams that have given TCU Carolina any sort of a challenge this year. So it's going to be really exciting to watch TCU go into the outdoor season. I think this team is good enough to win a national championship. I think you have the experience and the young talent across the board. TCU, I don't know if TCU has dropped a doubles point in any match this year. No, they took all 4 doubles points over the weekend. They have
not this season. Nope.
It's such a huge advantage when you take that first doubles point. And when you think about it, when you're winning all these matches, 4-0, 4-1, 5-0, players that don't have to finish their matches, I mean, you get a little bit of a breather in that respect. Maybe you're playing a really, really tough player and you don't have to finish the match. You can get a little bit of a breather because you get the doubles point, so you're already up 1-0, and it gives you a huge advantage. So love watching TCU men's tennis. David Roditi, the head coach, is an awesome dude. If you haven't viewed a Roditi report on Twitter, please check it out. He's a great guy. The program is awesome. So looking forward to seeing more awesome things from TCU tennis coming up into the spring part of the season here.
Yeah, I did like his report after the team took down Georgia and how he, said that was for all the fans.
We got the revenge.
Fans were really looking forward to beating Georgia and getting some revenge back against the Bulldogs. So that's right. So TCU men's tennis next has a match on Tuesday against UT Arlington in Fort Worth. And then next Saturday, March 4th, is Texas, number 2 now, Texas, comes to town, to Fort Worth, to the Purple Courts, outdoor. Everybody needs to be out at that match. It's gonna be quite a show. The 2 top teams in the country facing off, and it'll be an exciting atmosphere. So make sure if you're in town to make your way out to the Purple Courts on Saturday, March 4th for men's tennis versus Texas. One other thing I wanted to touch on before we closed, TCU women's basketball finally won a conference game. So I wanted to give them a shout out. I know it's been a really tough season, and they've been putting in the work, and they were able to take down Kansas State last week, or I guess on Saturday. So that was big. They gave a pretty good push to Baylor in this most recent game, and ended up losing. But I don't know what's ahead for that program and for everything going forward. I think, hopefully better days ahead, but good to see them get that 0 off of the win column.
Getting a win over Texas A&M. Equestrian, I believe, is ranked number 3 in the country right now. TCU Rifle has, again, ho-hum, 17th year in a row, qualified for the NCAA national championship, an opportunity there to bring home another national title. Some record-setting individual performances from TCU's rifle shooters this year. So a shout-out to the rifle squad, Equestrian, and TCU women's tennis had a really good start to the year as well, 6-0 to start the year before losing against LSU. So beach volleyball coming in top 3. Beach volleyball is going to be coming around.
I was going to say beach volleyball is coming up soon.
Beach volleyball action at the Rec. So many good things going on for TCU athletics right now. The post-2022 football depression is over. We are in 2023, and there are so many good things that are happening in Fort Worth. So really exciting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's where we'll end it here tonight. Appreciate everyone listening. Thanks, Russ, for joining me here tonight. And, follow everything we're doing at Frogs of War. Follow us on Twitter at Frogs of War, Facebook, YouTube, all of that. We appreciate all of you reading our content, listening to us, and all the engagement. Reach out to us. We're happy to chat Frogs or Big 12 or anything else that's going on anytime. So
go Frogs.
With that, we'll sign off. Thanks. Go Frogs.